Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of the Kashif Booth podcast. If you're new here, each week I sit down with a guest and we discuss their career so far, the highs, the lows, and what's next for them. Today's guest is Sharks. He is the co-creator and co-host of the hit podcast, the Inspire Podcast. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Wow. This can I just say this is an honor and privilege to be on your show. And can I also say that Kashif was the first person in our new series when we actually fixed it up, had a studio, had some sort of a budget, I guess. Kashif was the first one to come down and help us out and kick everything that I've got off. So this feels very full circle. This feels very nice to be able to come onto your podcast and to speak.
Thank you for coming on. I've been on your show twice, and it was an
Yeah,
honor every time you asked me to be on it. I enjoy coming on your show. We have
yeah.
great in-depth conversations. I feel like I dropped some gems which I didn't realize. I'm like, oh shit, like
All the
this
time.
can go on like my socials. People need to hear this. So I'm like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
so
Of
I'm
course, yeah.
grateful. I love your podcast and what you guys do and how you champion the conversations so well. They're always talking about male podcasts. We need to take away mics from men. But nah, you
Yeah,
have a great podcast which has in-depth conversations and such a great variety of guests. And it shows that like, look, black men, and we'll get into that later. Black men are confident, we're strong, we have insightful and intellectual conversations, not
Mm,
who should pay on the first date or how many bodies the
absolutely.
girl has. Like,
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
So it's great to have you on the show.
No, I appreciate that. Yeah, I've been hearing that men's podcast mics should be taxed and
Yeah.
made a lot more expensive and
Yeah,
so
yeah.
and to be fair, it makes sense, I guess.
Mm,
Because in some ways I feel like podcasts in a way because of how saturated it's become, it's kind of become devalued a little bit.
yeah, yeah,
Because
yeah.
out of everything from, let's say, me writing a book to making a film
Hmm.
to even producing a short film, making a YouTube video, making an album, it's like the smallest level of entry.
Hmm.
And which makes it seem like it's a very easy thing to do, but the hard part is to actually create value from that. Because
Exactly.
everybody can pick up a mic and talk.
Hmm.
Not everybody can get a camera and shoot a film. So it's like everybody does it to
Hmm.
get their name out there.
Yeah.
And because of that, it's kind of, it's flooded the pool with a lot of nonsense, you know?
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
But see, that's not you. That's not you, and that's what I like.
Try not to be. Try not to be.
But tell me, how did you get started with your podcast? Because you had done it a few years before you kind of
Yeah.
relaunched last year, and you had achieved success then. And then once you came back, you kind of came back with a bang, which is great to see
Yeah.
as well. So, like, what was the inspiration behind it?
Yeah, no, of course. So it initially kicked off with so back in the day, me and my friend Mo, who's also the co-host, um, him and I like we would be into writing and stuff like that. And we were reading at the time because we were trying to like write a book. And at the time he was listening to another podcast that was reviewing movies and stuff like that.
Okay.
So he messaged me one day out of the blue. It was like, yo, should we do this but for like books?
Hmm.
And since we were reading books anyway, it made good sense. And I was like, yeah, sure, of course, why not? And then so we just went to his place with one Blue Yeti mic between us and then just started. I
Hmm.
remember talking about the Great Gatsby. And so we started that end of 2017 and we had it going all the way through to like almost 2019.
Hmm.
And it was doing really well, to be fair. We had like 40K listeners like a
Wow.
year.
Wow.
Yeah, so like there was a lot of
Mhm.
a lot of people listening and it was doing well. And then like 2020 kind of hit, and just before 2020, people getting married and stuff like that. And it was just kind of we kind of took a big hiatus,
Okay.
and we kind of came back 2022 um to basically kick it off, and then everybody took a break again. But the whole time, because with me, like I'm really into stories. in any medium, whether it's through books, whether it's through movies, whether it's even like people now do podcast story types. So like
Mhm.
they'll tell a story but make it a podcast form.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is actually really like because all my YouTube recommendations, that's how it is. You know, it's about the story how this guy did this, how this person did that. And I was like, you know what, I've got a platform where I can actually share stories and stuff, you know,
Hmm.
like why don't I just go back into it?
Hmm.
Um and also I did it with another thought in mind of around that same time last year, I was like seeing a lot of different people in, I guess, the Somali scene
Hmm.
that were like doing a lot of like great things. Um, and I was like, okay, wow, it feels like the Somali scene is like starting to pick up right now. And it is. Usually we were quite dormant until like
Hmm.
chunks came along and stuff like that. But
Hmm.
before that, there wasn't really much like of Somalis coming together to like try and do stuff. And I was like, there was a proper real scene here. What could I contribute to this scene? And then like I said, the barrier of entry to other stuff is quite high. So I was
Hmm.
like, I can't produce a movie in a year. I can't make an album. I can't
Hmm.
write a book in 6 months. So and I've got a podcast, so why don't I just kick it
Hmm.
back up? And then initially it was kind of solo because I guess everybody else was just kind of like, oh, I don't know, man, you know, Spy's kind of over kind of thing,
Hmm.
you know. And I
Hmm.
was like, well, it's not, you know.
Hmm. Hmm.
We still got value. We still have the ability to connect and to tell people stuff and our stories and stuff like that, and to help inspire. And then so I kicked it back off solo dolo. Found the studio. It was relatively good. I mean, to be fair, compared to everyone else's great price.
Yeah. Yeah. I know.
Yeah, you know.
Hmm.
It was sensational. I was like, what? I felt like it was a steal. And then yeah, the first person I reached out to was you. And you graciously accepted it and yeah, and then it kicked off from there.
Love it, love it. And now you've got your co-host, and you guys are just doing so
Yeah,
well. Like you've got crazy numbers, and the engagement is really good. And I was
yeah,
honored. I'm always honored when anyone asks me to be on their podcast. And I think my favorite ones have been with you, if I'm
yeah.
honest. Like I think because you have good conversations. You're not just
No,
asking like
of course. Yeah,
about my career, which is fine to
yeah,
talk about. But like the first time we were on there, you was asking about my career, but then we are talking about books that I like and
yeah,
I've read, and and that's
yeah,
what I like is the theme of it is really intellectual conversations.
yeah,
I spoke about like I read Malcolm X's biography
yeah,
at 15.
yeah,
And some people feel like, oh, what, your parents forced you to do that? I said, no, my parents raised me a bit too pro-black.
yeah,
And so
yeah,
yeah, I'm way more pro-black than they are right now. Okay.
yeah,
And
yeah,
like,
yeah,
and so I was like, I want to read this. And I read that
yeah,
at 13 and those are the stuff that I was like really inspired by and drawn to. And it was great having
yeah,
those conversations because nobody's really asked me that. I like to
yeah,
read a lot of fiction and non-fiction books and sometimes at the same time. And so, it's good to kind of expand your knowledge
yeah,
and this is how you further develop your skills. Reading it's not a lost art form, but I think the way we're so consumed like with like social media and stuff like that, it's like it's still not the same because it kind of can be
yeah.
in it out the other or
No,
people are just trying to get a
100%.
check. So
Yeah, yeah,
you
yeah,
you want to hear, but it's not actually
yeah,
helping you. It's just feeding their pockets. Anybody
yeah,
can be what's it called? A life coach.
yeah, yeah,
People
yeah,
can be like,
literally.
go and do it, guys. But if you're
Yeah,
reading, and that's what it is. And I really like that what you've done. So
yeah,
how has it been for you like to essentially do a reboot of your show? Because,
yeah.
and now it be successful. Like when you were
Mm.
doing it before, there was no like TikTok, there was no
No, there wasn't,
YouTube
yeah.
Shorts, there was no Instagram Reels. Like the way how we would promote our stuff was different.
Yeah,
Now it's a little bit more easier, but also again, it is still an oversaturated market. But you
yeah,
can just have one video, what just blows up.
kick
So
off. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, so how has that been for you? Because you've garnered a lot of success over the past,
No,
what, 18
I
months or so.
appreciate that. I would say to just quickly say
Hmm.
on the first part of like, me actually asking about you and trying to make
Hmm.
my podcast a bit more conversation, like that's essentially the kind of aim
Hmm.
because like especially with the podcast that I kind of like to listen to, it's a lot more conversational rather than like here's the next question and then you ask, okay, here's the next question, like a press junket almost,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Um, because one thing that I struggle with and I truly believe is what is, I guess, the greatest superpower in this media world is vulnerability. Um, and not even vulnerability in the sense of like really, really expressing yourself, but the vulnerability in being able to be honest with
Hmm.
who you are
Yeah.
and and being authentic. And that's something that I've really been trying to think of over the last few years because I
Hmm.
realize when I'm speaking and when I'm answering questions, naturally I'm building up so many barriers. So I say things that I listen back to when I'm editing, and I'm like, I'd realized that I wasn't as honest as I felt like I should have been. And I was like, why did I do that? And it was a very subconscious thing of like putting up barriers around the stuff that I'm trying to basically say.
Hmm.
Um, all of the problems that I might have had, and I'm like, yeah, this happened a few years ago when it only happened a few months ago.
Hmm.
It was about this person when the story was actually about me. And it was kind of like, so I was just asking myself, like, why do I deflect it? Why do I not try and be as authentic as possible? And
Hmm.
that's what we try and push on the podcast. So it's easier for me to try and bring it out of like, let's say you or
Hmm.
another guest.
Hmm.
Um, because the last thing that, well, especially when I'm listening to creatives, I don't like to hear, oh, you just gotta do it and then it works out.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
want to hear, okay, like you tried it at first, it didn't work out.
Hmm.
In those moments when
Hmm.
you're thinking, damn, this might not work out, like what were you thinking? That's where you get
Yeah.
the gems,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Because you made
Yeah.
it work now, but you had a moment that you thought it wouldn't work. What
Hmm.
changed, you know?
Hmm. Hmm. I
And
love that.
yeah, no, and in those moments, that's as creatives, as you get those dark moments, in
Hmm.
those where you start thinking to yourself, doubt comes in, insecurities come in, all these other things come in, and you're thinking maybe this isn't it, like this is the thing that you've wanted for so long, this is the thing
Hmm.
you're doing now, and then
Hmm.
it's not garnering success, and then it's in the distance, but it's coming slowly at you
Yeah.
that that I guess harsh conversation of okay, maybe you're good at this as a hobby. Maybe you're not a professional at this. Maybe you
Hmm.
won't get to because it's kind of like football.
Hmm.
Football is
Hmm.
very brutal in the sense that you're a kid and you love this game. And then you grow up and then you realize, or somebody tells you, you're a good kid, but you're not that good and you won't make it, you
Hmm.
know?
Hmm.
And the fact that even 0.1% of academy players actually make it professional,
Wow.
let alone that's just the academy players.
Hmm.
So a lot of kids don't even get to the academy.
Wow.
But how many people love to play football? It's like so many, but it's a lot
Hmm.
more brutal then. But with the creativity, you can kind of always work at it, You can
Hmm.
always kind of work at it. I like stories more where people made it towards the
Hmm.
end.
Hmm.
Rather than like they were 15, they sang on YouTube and then they made it. I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah.
can't relate to that. I
No. No. Hmm.
can't relate to that. But yeah, so that was, I guess, what I kind of would say. That's what I kind of like those conversations
Hmm.
to try and basically boost the morale of of our creative community.
Yeah. Yeah. Hmm.
Is what we try to do here on Inspire. And I think you asked me a second question about the
The success, like how you've been able to really reboot it and just come back with like all of this
Yeah,
engagement
no,
and
yeah.
yeah.
I think what helps now is just
Hmm.
it's kind of getting on with the times.
Mm. Mm.
Because when we started in like 2017, which is wild, it's like 7 years ago now. I thought it was like it feels
Yeah.
like three, but it's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
7. When we started then, there was like we for our first 100 videos or so, there
Mm-hmm.
was no YouTube videos.
Mm-hmm.
There was no it was just on SoundCloud, and
Mm-hmm.
that put it through onto Apple and Spotify and all these other kind of places. And like
Mm-hmm.
that's just where it was. There was no visual image of even who we
Mm-hmm.
were. Our
Yeah.
Instagram page was like just audio snippets, and
Mm-hmm.
Twitter was really where it was at.
Mm-hmm.
Because
That's
some of
true.
the stuff that, yeah, because some of the stuff that we put out would spark conversations and stuff like that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then I was like, okay, cool. If I'm gonna bring it back, it can't be that way anymore. It has to be kind of different. It has to be able to go on TikTok. It has to be able to go on YouTube. It has to be able to go on Instagram. Vertical. Okay, so I need videos and I can't be asked to set everything up and I need
Mm-hmm.
space. Okay, studio makes sense. The microphones, everything's all synced up, all right. Because before that, we used to go to when we're trying video, we would go to a friend of mine. His studio is like it was a drama room. So it
Okay.
wasn't even like a proper studio. So we
Mm-hmm.
would have to get our cameras, get the tripod, set it up, connect our own microphones, set up the mic arms, and then start recording. And that became a bit tedious. Um, and I realized sometimes, especially when you're trying to start out and you're kind of starting from the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
you need to make your access to doing it as easy as possible.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
the harder you make things, the less you want to actually do it.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
uh,
100%.
so I think that's maybe even why some of my friends weren't really feeling it as much because they couldn't be asked to go all the way there, set everything up, sit down and
Mm-hmm.
record. One time we recorded and it wasn't even recording. You know,
Oh no.
yeah. So like
Wow.
that kind of stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
for me, I was just going over. The only problem was just going to Richmond. You
Mm-hmm.
know. But once you get there, all you have to do is sit down, do
Mm-hmm.
what you have to do, not worry about anything else. And then the guest comes, you just do your job, and then they send it to you the next day. And I was like, yeah, this is a no-brainer,
Mm-hmm.
you know? This is
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
and that helps you with your consistency, you know?
Mhm. No, I like that. You made really good points because I think I try to do that on my podcast as well. Like,
Yeah,
have an unfiltered truth to the creative
yeah,
industry because I've been to so many panels or listened to so many podcasts and I get frustrated because you're telling me the diplomatic version of your route to success. And I
yeah.
find it very annoying. It's like cut the shit and get to the real, you know,
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah. That's what
oh,
I'm
you
saying.
just have to work hard. You just have to keep
Yeah,
sending
like,
emails. You just have
yeah.
to be committed.
Yeah, like I
Okay.
get that is granted, but when I want to know when like you thought
Hmm.
you had a client and then you do everything, prepare everything, and you show them like I don't know a pitch,
Hmm.
and then they say this is
Yeah,
actually garbage,
yeah,
and you go
yeah,
home. How did you
exactly.
deal with that? You
Yeah,
know?
that's what I want. And so for my platform, I make sure that I'm telling the real. Everybody who comes on
Yeah,
here, we're sharing the real. Okay.
yeah,
If I'm going
definitely,
to speak
definitely.
on, when I've spoken on panels and
Yeah,
masterclasses or even like your platform, I
yeah,
give the honest truth because
you do.
why? Why? Because I think the issue with the industry, the creative industry, there's this allure to it that, oh,
Mm,
it's so cool. Like, this is they want it to be prestige and that you
yeah,
can get into it in a certain way
yeah,
because you can't get into it in like the traditional way. You have to
yeah,
garner experience for you to be
yeah,
able to get into the door. And I think now, because we have so much outlet with the internet, the way to get into the industry or to achieve your goals has completely changed. So
yeah,
it's thrown a whole loop into the industry and they've had to been forced to adapt, you know?
yeah,
And so, but the industry's still like that anyway. They've had to
yeah,
create
literally.
roles, but then it's like they will only group you in this part, until you
Yeah,
get able to transfer over to where you want to be. And that's what I like about both of our platforms because we make sure that it's conversational. I don't want it to
mm,
be like I'm just talking at somebody.
yeah.
We're
No,
having
of
a
course.
conversation. And a lot of the people who are on my podcast, I've known for years,
Yeah.
I've worked with them. So it already feels more organic.
Like authentic
It's-
and stuff like yeah,
Yeah.
of
And if it's
course.
people who I
Yeah.
haven't met sometimes,
Yeah.
it's just cool because I'm able to relate to them anyway as to what they're
Yeah.
saying. And it's also about the art of conversation. You need to
Yeah.
know how to conversate. You need to be personable. You need to
That's
have
true.
personality or not try to
Yeah.
be like other people, on
Yeah,
podcasts and whatever. Like, no. And I just
yeah,
want people to enjoy this. That's why I've mapped out how I wanted to do each season. And now I'm able to talk to every person who I've met along the way,
yeah,
all different types of stuff. And even today, like our
yeah,
conversation is very different to what I've done in other seasons of my podcast
yeah,
because we're talking about podcasts. We're talking about how
yeah,
you can actually build an audience with your podcast, even if you don't have thousands of listeners, how you're just
yeah,
creating good conversation and
yeah,
the one person who listens to it will be happy and that's it. And when you take away
yeah,
like ego and things like that, you
yeah,
know, that's what it is because like I just love doing what I'm doing. I love to
yeah,
make
no, of
it's like
course.
it's another creative outlet, because
Yeah,
you also, Sharks, you're an overall creative, okay? I see you've
yeah.
done your sketches on TikTok, which have me laughing so hard. You also share your opinions on some of the stuff what goes on in the
It's,
world, and then they try and attack you.
yeah,
And you dip your toe into acting as well. So like,
yeah,
you're an overall creative. So
yeah,
I want to know like what is your goal? Because I like that you're in so many different pots and you're kind of like me. We're kind of just we're creative, so we're always just gonna be doing something.
yeah.
Or like what is your goal? Because I've wanted to figure you out. Like what
I
do you
know, yeah,
actually
for
want to
sure.
do?
For sure. I think the pretentious answer that I guess we're trying to avoid would be
Okay.
me saying something like, "Oh, I'm trying to be like Donald Glover kind of thing,
Okay. Okay.
multifaceted, all that kind of
Mm, mm,
jazz, right?" But if we're being authentic,
mm-hmm,
it's me really trying to figure out, um, and saying it's me really saying yes to like different other things. And for example, the acting thing,
mm-hmm,
um, I was like, you know what? Okay, so I got invited to um Duxie Days, which was at the Royal Theatre. It was by a Somali
mm-hmm.
production house
Okay.
and a Somali girl wrote it and it was in theatre. I was like,
Mm,
what is going on here? We've made it to
mm-hmm,
theatre.
mm-hmm.
She was one of the like few people, her name is Sabrina, that I was seeing like from the scene when I wasn't really making anything yet
Okay.
like coming up, and I was like, oh wow, she's got her thing going on. So I reached out to her. I was like, oh, would you like to come on our podcast and this and that? She said, oh, at the moment she was hella busy. It made sense. She was rehearsing and stuff. But then she managed to like fortunately get me an opportunity at to do the post talk show at the theater.
Oh
And
yes, I remember seeing you post that. Yes, yes.
yeah, and then
Mm-hmm,
I was shook, I'll be honest, because it was the first time I was on stage in a while
mm-hmm,
since I was a kid. And I
mm,
was like, you know what? But I need to go through this to be able to like achieve, I guess, what my goal is,
yeah.
even though it's not really concrete what I want, but I know it'll need to be in front of people, maybe a stage, who
Mm-hmm,
knows what will come in the future. And
mm-hmm.
there I was watching her play, and I was like, there was something, and I hadn't been to a theater in a long time, and there's something, the theater is very different.
Yeah.
There's a whole different experience that you can feel when you're seeing the people doing it in front of you, you
Mm-hmm,
know?
mm-hmm,
Like it's happening right here, it's real, it's live. And that added a lot of stuff to me. I was like, wow, this would be interesting if I could, have a go at this. But I
mm-hmm.
was like, nah, never that. I mean, I'm getting scared about doing an interview,
Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
let alone doing the whole
Mm-hmm,
podcast. So yeah, I do the interview thing. After like 10 minutes of like being on the stage, it was kind of fine. Went back to just being feeling like a podcast
mm-hmm.
because I was very familiar with it.
Yeah.
But then
Mm-hmm.
my friend he then contacted me after a while. I was like, I've wrote something. Do you wanna be in it? And like I said, it was just me in my yes era, as my sister says.
Okay, okay.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, you know what? Yeah, why not? I'll do it. Until it
Okay.
came round to it, and then and then so then at that point I went on holiday, but I was, and then I came back and everybody else was already rehearsing. So I
Okay.
thought, you know what, just go there at least knowing your lines,
Okay. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
so you don't hold anybody back. So then I go there, and I'll be honest with you, I was trash.
So,
I was, as they say, dog water. I was awful, awful. But they were patient with me, and
Mm,
they were like, "Nah, you just gotta, do this a bit more, Like I find it weirdly enough very hard to get angry, like
okay.
show anger.
Hmm.
I kind
Yeah.
of simmer into anger, you
Okay.
know.
Okay.
There's a
Hmm.
scene where I have to like shout like angry, and then I was like, I can't perform that without breaking character because I'll be like, this looks so silly, and you have to
Mm.
feel like the person in order to play it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then they were very accommodating. They found different ways for me to make it a bit more natural, a bit more. So, anyways, after that, I text my friend, my co-host. I'm like, yo, because he was asking about, it. He's like, how's the rehearsals going and all this kind of stuff, and I was like, this is. I said it basically, don't come to this. I don't, I don't want to see anybody that I know in the
Mm,
audience.
mm,
Um, and yeah, that's when I wasn't re I put out there's maybe something going on, but I wasn't as, trying to let
Okay.
everybody
Okay.
know I'm in the show. The less people that knew me in the audience, I felt like the better. You know?
Okay.
Um, but then as rehearsals was kind of going along, I was kind of getting more into it. I was getting a bit more comfortable. And I usually write out whenever I'm feeling hella anxious, like on this journal. I write out on my phone, I take a picture of the
Mm,
moment, I proper try to encapsulate that moment as much as possible.
mm,
Um, and basically the rest of the cast, they were also like very nervous. It was their first time and they were like, I can't wait till it's over because we had 3 nights in a row to do. And
oh
I was like,
wow. Okay.
what? I feel better now. Like everybody's
Mm.
in the same boat.
Yeah.
I felt like I
Yeah.
was hanging out because I only went to like one rehearsals and they've been to it for like a month. I
Oh
felt like I
wow.
was slowing everybody down. But everybody was in the same kind of boat, like
Mm,
in terms of their
mm,
nerves and being ready for it. So I was like, you know what? I'm all Gucci. And then after the first night, which was the most anxious one, it felt a bit calmer.
okay.
you know. And
Mm,
then I said to myself, you know what, for the next 3 days, you're getting paid to basically come to the Rich Mix studio, run around for a little bit,
mm,
be silly,
mhm,
and then you perform in the evening where
mhm.
your people are applauding for you and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, 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 exactly.
So I was like, just enjoy the moment because you don't know when the next time you're gonna get something like this. So the last 2 nights it was just kind of like that. I was
Mhm,
just more enjoying it. So that was an interesting one. But going back to like what I'm trying to be, I
mhm,
guess right now it's I guess I say story like trying to get into storytelling, but that doesn't make sense because it's just so many different things.
mm.
Like what does that
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
It's so
Hmm.
abstract. So that's what I'm really trying to figure out. I'm trying to figure it out through the podcast,
Hmm.
through acting, through skits, through different kind of means. Right now, essentially to try and find my voice
Hmm. Hmm.
and to try and figure out kind of like what my niche kind of is,
Mm, mm,
and to try and double down
mm,
on something now.
mm. I really like that answer. I really like that. And the thing is, it's like it might be corny and like cringe, but like the timing of everything is always right. You have
Yeah,
enough time to figure it out, and you're
yeah,
supposed to explore things.
yeah,
Sometimes within this industry, they tell you, okay, what do you want to do? And then you'll say it. And it's like, okay, this is
yeah,
what you need to do to work towards that. But it's like,
yeah,
we're human. We change our mind. We
yeah,
have different experiences. And I think it's important to explore
yeah,
every facet of this industry. And also we need to live our lives. So
yeah,
like, sometimes as creatives, like I've had spoken to people where sometimes you will put like normal things on the back burner, like getting the
yeah,
house, getting married, going on holiday, little things like that, because you feel like, oh,
yeah,
if I
yeah,
do that, I'm gonna miss out on this or that. But you still need to find a balance, and
yeah.
everything what is for you will come to you regardless. And I like that you are
Regardless, yeah,
doing all of
100%.
that, because the
Yeah,
thing is like it's okay because we also are multi-talented people. We have talents
yeah,
in things. Just because we want to do one thing doesn't mean that we can't do another. You know,
yeah, literally.
and one thing I really liked was how you said that you journal. I journal as
Mm.
well. I started journaling like 2 years ago, and it's more so like for me to remember like what I've done, and I like it. I like
Yeah,
to make sure that okay, this was what I was doing that day. This is how I was feeling. This is what
yeah,
this is what I was doing. And it's good to look back on as well. And it is very
Of course.
therapeutic. Like, because usually, like when I'm writing, I
Yeah.
write scripts.
Yeah.
And when I started writing like journals or non-fiction stuff, I've just felt like, okay, well, wow, like I'm just literally putting my thoughts
Yeah.
onto paper and it just puts me at ease. I'm not trying to like come up with a character or what is at stake for
Yeah.
them. No, I'm just able to just write what's in my head.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
that's how I remember I wrote like 1,000 words in like a couple hours. I was like, whoa,
Yeah.
where did this come from? But and
Yeah.
that's what it is. And I think
Yeah.
it's very good for like peace of mind, mental health, and I think a lot of people need to do that more,
Yeah.
really, really need to do that more. And that's what it is. We're tearing down the toxic masculinity one by one.
Yeah, yeah, of course, of course. I mean, you know what it is. I think it's all again. It comes back
Mm,
down to being pretentious, you
mm,
know,
yeah.
which is, I guess, a big part of social media. It works very much hand in hand, of
Mhm,
like you, because I had the same thoughts. I was like, okay, how can I give advice
mhm,
when I don't look like I'm living that advice. Do you
mhm,
know what I mean?
mhm,
So
mhm,
how can I say, oh yeah, get out there and make your money and do this and do that if I don't have
mhm,
like a nice car behind me, for example? Then it's
mm,
like, is this gonna fall on deaf ears? Does it even make sense?
mm,
Am I
mm.
allowed, that what's that? Uh imper what's that syndrome where you feel like
Oh, imposter syndrome.
imposter. Yeah, I was about to say
Mhm.
impersonator syndrome. Yeah, no,
Close.
imposter. Yeah, it's an imposter syndrome. You're
Mm,
getting all of that kind of stuff, right? But the fact, I always go back to that, and I always kind of think, okay, so
mhm,
the fact that you've got someone like Andrew Tate, for example,
mhm.
who is now the figurehead for a lot of men. Um,
Yeah.
and you've got like for example, a lot of men are now relating to characters like, let's say, Thomas Shelby. You've got
Mm,
a lot of guys watching, I don't know if you know them, it's called Fresh and Fit.
no, not
It's
heard of them.
bottom barrel podcast. But
Okay.
anyways, you've got
Yeah.
guys watching this and they've got people watching them in truckloads, right?
Mm,
Under the guise of how to be a man.
yeah.
So sometimes people like, will look at that and they'll say, okay, yeah, but it's just, why would idiots watch that? But the
Hmm.
way I kind of look at it is like how disenfranchised do guys feel
Hmm.
that this is what they're now gravitating towards?
Hmm.
Like how many, I guess, hurt guys are there that have to listen to that and be like, yeah, you know what, that's true.
Mm,
And a lot of the time, that's what it is. A lot of the time, it's like a girl would have cheated on them, and
mm,
then Andrew
mm.
Tate is saying that, oh, she cheated on you because this is who you are, and they'll highlight all your imperfections and
Yeah, yeah,
your
yeah.
so-called vulnerabilities, and you'd be like,
Hmm.
that's why she did it. You must
Yeah.
kill that side of you, hit
Hmm.
the gym, get
Yeah.
your money, and nobody will ever hurt you again. And
Hmm.
in some ways, it's really validating because
Hmm.
the most validating thing that you can hear for your mess up or for a mess up is
Hmm.
it's not your fault. It
Yeah.
is not you that did it,
Hmm.
you know?
Hmm. Hmm.
You lose hella money and somebody goes, don't worry, it's not your fault. The market crashed. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? And you're like,
yeah, yeah.
you're right. So like these
Yeah.
guys have been hurt or like they can't get girls or
Hmm.
like they're a nice guy, for example, or something like that. And they've built up this a lot of hatred of like, why can't I get these women? Like, why don't they
Yeah.
like me? And then
Yeah.
somebody comes along and says, they don't like you because they don't know how to tolerate a nice man. They want to
Hmm.
go sleep with Chads and all this kind of stuff. And you go, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, man, you're
Hmm.
right. And then they're like,
Hmm.
what you
Hmm.
need to do is work out. And you're like, yeah, I do. Work out, make money, and then you'll see you get them back.
Hmm. Hmm.
And that has validated them. That's like, it's not on me. No,
Yeah.
no, no. Any girl that doesn't like me clearly wants to sleep around, you
Yeah.
know? And
Hmm.
all I have to do is just go to the gym, I'll get my money up,
Yeah.
and then
Hmm.
you'll see they'll come back,
Hmm.
you know?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
that's like kind of how it is, but like there is no alternative to that speech,
Hmm.
you know?
Hmm.
There isn't a different form of like Tate, there isn't like another person that's like, no, actually what you lack is empathy,
Mm.
and which is true. A lot of the time, what guys lack is empathy, and I feel like girls pick up empathy as well naturally better.
It's true. And you made such good points. And I think when you're talking about like the toxic male podcast, I think
Yeah.
the reason why men, some men, because I don't need that, you don't need that, but like why they seek validation from those type
Yeah.
of podcasts is because the way how men are raised in society, and they are raised by their mothers, like some
Yeah.
people don't even say that, but to be in those ways where they're emotionless or they don't talk. Do you get what I'm
Mm.
saying? So
Yeah.
men still want to have that type of inspiration. And I
Yeah.
think, especially when you're thinking about a modern man who is a millennial or Gen Z or whatever, we have grown up in a society where we've seen a lot of stuff about women's empowerment,
Yeah.
and yes, women are still not the same as
Yeah. Of
men,
course.
but
Yeah.
and a lot of the time we've grown up seeing where marginalized groups are able to have their own spaces and
Yeah.
they're being supported and pushed, and that's great. And we still need it today because
Yeah.
we still need it, but sometimes I think men who've been forced to kind of realize like, oh crap, like okay, I've not even
Yeah.
done this, but
Yeah.
okay, I'm being told this is what I do and this is what I have to do, and
Yeah.
oh, I need to make sure I don't
Yeah.
react in this way. And
Yeah.
so I understand why some men need to feel that validation and inspiration as to,
Mm.
okay, how can I get a girl? I don't know how to speak
Yeah.
to women. I want to, but I don't know what to do because they've not had maybe that in the home or the
Yeah.
experience their dad hasn't been around to know how to do this or having an older sibling to show them how to
Yeah.
do
Yeah. Yeah.
A, B, C, D. So I understand why they will end up leaning towards those type of content because
Yeah.
you don't really have that where you've seen like, men's magazine don't talk about things like that. They're talking
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
sport and cars and fitness, women's
Yeah.
magazine, they're talking about, how to get the perfect guy and
Yeah.
girls' night and this and that.
Yeah.
Where
Yeah.
men, they don't have that. You get what I mean?
Mm.
So to see a group of guys who are friends and sitting around talking and seeing that they have a great friendship is like, well, a lot of men, some of them don't have that.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
understand why some of them pull towards that. But then when
Yeah.
your rhetoric is just trash,
Yeah.
yeah, that's what you're spewing out, and it's like you're doing more harm than good. So I
Then good. Yeah.
understand that. But Sharks, like you like to cause a little controversy yourself anyway with your platform. You set me up the
You
last
know
time I
what?
was on your
I'll
show.
be honest with you. Yeah. I had, I had, I didn't know it was gonna do that. Do you
So
know what I mean?
guys, you have no idea what we're talking about. But the last time I was on Shark's podcast, right? At the end of the episode, he just blurted out saying, "Okay, are Somalis black?" And I just said yes instantly because I've never heard anything else. I'm like, "Well, you're
Yeah.
black. What? I don't
Yeah.
understand." So Sharks, he goes and puts that on TikTok, and then
Yeah.
the Somali TikTok, yeah, they came for us. They were like, "Who are
Wow.
you to tell us what we are?" And
Yeah.
it's right, Sharks. You know what it is? People have trouble figuring like understanding the difference between race and
Mm.
ethnicity. And that's
Yeah.
what it is. Like
Yeah.
that's what and nationality. Like they
Yeah.
think that be fucking people up. Like they don't know
Yeah.
how that means. You got the Dominicans. I'm not black. I'm
Yeah. 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 I'm
like,
Dominican. Yeah. Yeah.
yo. These people, oh, I'm Somali. I'm not black.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
so
Yeah. Yeah.
okay, black is not a horrible word. Okay, and you look at your skin, like this is okay. We might not be black, but we're like this is
Yeah.
brown. I don't know
This
what you,
would. Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that's what it is, and it's like it's crazy. So
Yeah.
please tell
But you know
me,
what it is
audience.
from their perspective, right?
Yeah.
So with Somalis, they've kind of always had this complex with black, right?
Mm,
Because they see it as a label that somebody has thrown it on
mm,
who they are. Like a
mhm,
Somali person won't introduce themselves as a black person. They'll just introduce themselves as Somali, you
mhm,
know?
mhm, mhm,
Um, and if especially I guess like how our parents are very much like they're the ones that came from the country straight to here. We're
Mm,
first generation, right?
mm, mm, mm.
So we're still upon kind of a lot of the stuff that they're upon, and they've
Yeah.
never associated
Mm-hmm.
themselves as black, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
when they hear stuff like, oh, black kids doing this, or black
Mm,
kids, or all this kind of stuff, and they've seen in this country, oh, this has got a lot of connotations to it. You know what I
mm,
mean?
mm,
Like, what is this black, black, black that we're always hearing?
mm.
You know what
Okay.
I mean? Because from their perspective, they don't hear this. Nobody ever says, oh, in Somalia, oh yeah, just black Somalis. It's just
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
everybody's. That's what happens when everybody's the same color. You live
Mm-hmm.
in that
Mm-hmm.
ignorant bliss
Yeah,
of
yeah,
no
100%. Yeah,
colorism
yeah,
because
yeah, yeah,
everybody's
yeah,
the same
yeah.
color.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah. Exactly.
um,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
uh, only the only other time is like kind of like when somebody has a more fairer, as they
Mm-hmm.
say, or lighter complexion, where they'll say a
Mm-hmm.
word called ade, which means like white person. So they'll
Okay.
almost even say as an endearment as well, you know.
Mm.
But
Okay.
as far as
Okay.
like, oh, you're just black, there is
Mm-hmm.
no
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
term, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so then when they come in here and then they're being told, oh yeah, you're black, you're this, you're that, they
Mm-hmm.
see it as almost an
A negative
insult and
connotation. Yeah.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and it taken away from who they are.
Yeah. Mm,
Do you know
mm,
what I mean?
mm,
And so they instill it in us
mm-hmm.
to be like, don't let nobody say this stuff about you. You're Somali regardless, all right?
Mm, mm.
Don't You're not none of that because
Yeah.
what they usually hear with it is like black ruffian, black gangs, black
Yeah,
youths.
they've
This,
tarnished the word black, so I totally understand. Yeah, yeah,
do you
yeah.
know what I mean? So
Mm,
they're like, no, you don't associate with that. This is not
fair.
what you
Which is
do.
fair, which is fair.
This is not
Mm-hmm.
what we do. Blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
We don't engage in gang culture and all this other kind of stuff.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I understand.
So
Mm,
that's what it is. So like I guess growing up,
mm-hmm.
like I know many people that
Mm,
won't see themselves as black. You know
mm.
what I mean?
Okay.
Um, I don't consider it as black. Like it's very much ingrained
Mm-hmm.
within, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and that's how it's been for such a long time.
Right.
So our audience as well is majority Somali,
Mm-hmm.
and I think I was reading it in Somali that I could barely even understand. So I think it hit back home.
Oh gosh.
And then I remember I was
Mm-hmm.
thinking, what is going on? Because I was seeing so many comments after comments after comments
Mm-hmm.
after comments after comments. I was
Yeah.
thinking,
We were ratioed. Okay. It went because the likes were like "Psh, this, but the comments were like,
they go,
whoa.
yeah, yeah. And then I was thinking how I was seeing stuff like how dare he attack our ancestors and how
Yeah.
dare he attack all this other
Yeah.
kind of stuff
Yeah.
and just coin us as black.
Mm-hmm.
Does he not know who? And like, I'll tell you one thing. Somalis, I think, are probably the most proud people the
Mm-hmm.
world has ever seen. I was watching one documentary where like
Mm-hmm.
Americans were talking about like the countries that they invaded, and they said usually when we go to a village that's unarmed, like they surrender,
Mm-hmm.
right? But he said the Somalis were the only ones that never would, and they would never accept the stuff that we were telling them and all this other kind of
Mm-hmm.
stuff. Like
Mm-hmm.
grandmas would run out of stones and all this
Yeah,
other
yeah,
kind of
yeah,
stuff.
yeah, yeah.
Like they've got a very much anti-get out the culture, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
Love
Um,
that.
like very proud people of their country. Like no matter I guess the turmoil that the country is in now,
Mm-hmm.
they'll never accept anyone to say that their country is better. It's
Yeah,
just kind
no
of
outsiders. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I
yeah,
love
it's just
that.
kind of what it
Mm-hmm.
is. So now
Mm-hmm.
it's like they saw you almost as attacking them with the word black.
Yeah. Well, you asked me. Okay, first of all I said was
That's
yes.
that you know what that is, but that's where I take the
Mm-hmm.
blame because I even when I said it, you could kind of see me smirking because I said it as almost a joke,
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
oh, somebody's black. If in fact I was
yeah.
thinking not to even ask that, and then I thought, you know what, like that's kind of funny, but I then
I just thought
realized
I
that
just
it's
said you,
not
and I
me that just
remember because
thinks
I
that.
said it immediately, and you were kind of shocked, taken back by how
Yeah,
but I was just like,
because
look, this is
because
good aggression.
I was thinking you knew the controversy. I was thinking
Yeah,
you
but
knew what would happen, and I was like, oh, he's willing to fight straight away.
Yeah, because I've seen people say they're not black, and then I've seen some Somalis
Yeah,
say they are black, and then I'm just like, well, I mean, you're black.
yeah,
But you know what it is like it just shows you how race is a social construct. Do you get what I
yeah,
mean? Like it really
yeah,
shows you how race is a social construct. And it's like, yeah, they are Somalian, but it's just like how the white media has made the negative connotation to the word black. Do you get what I mean?
yeah,
So that's also what plays into this, you know?
yeah.
But as
And
I always say, okay.
sorry, I was going to say it's Somali, not
Mhm.
Somalian. In case
Uh,
more of them try come and attack you
Thank you. Okay,
and
thank you.
say
Somali.
he just
Sorry,
hates
guys.
us.
Please don't drag me. Okay, like, please. I love you. Do you call yourself African? You still because
Yeah, they're
there's
definitely African, I'd
okay, I
say,
love
yeah,
my
for
African
sure.
people, okay? Like please
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
come for me again. I don't want
There
to
is
be
a fringe
cancelled by
group that say they're
Somali
Arabs though.
Somali TikTok. Huh? Say it again?
There is a fringe group as well that say they're Arabs
Yes.
because we're
Yes.
also part of the Arab League. So
Oh, okay.
there's a lot going on here. So you
Hmm.
know what it was? It was my fault for even roping you in to 100 years of just constant
Hmm.
back and forth of identity.
Which is
You
fine,
know,
which is fine. But do you class yourself as black or Somali, or are you just both?
I'm both for sure,
Okay. Okay.
for sure. Like I mean, like I've never introduced myself as a black guy, but
Yeah,
I
who
have
does? That's just weird. That's just weird.
But that's what I'm saying. Like like what they don't seem to understand is like the Somalis that hate the term black. I mean, it's like
Hmm.
you don't have to introduce yourself as I'm black Somali. This isn't all you're down to. Do you know what I mean?
Hmm.
But in this country that we happen to be in,
Yeah.
there's differentiations between how they
Hmm.
group people, I guess. And when I'm
Yeah,
doing
yeah.
forms, I'm filling out Black African. I'm not
Hmm.
going to other and then writing Somali out.
Yeah,
Do you know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah, yeah.
It,
Hmm. But it's
it,
also about a respect thing. It's to understand that like not every country is the same, and they don't view
mm,
race and nationality and
yeah,
ethnicities as the same.
mm,
It's kind of like the whole
yeah,
controversy with the singer Tyler, where in South Africa she's classed as colored, so
colored,
she
yeah,
doesn't class herself as black.
mm,
She has black ancestry, like her
yeah,
grandmother's black, and so and it makes more sense. Like she's a
yeah,
mixture of black or Asian,
yeah,
all different kind of races. So that makes sense, colored. But the
yeah,
way how colored is deemed in the Western world, that was some
yeah,
racist, So it's
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah,
but people in like America and other countries, they're just like, well, what? Like, but because they're so racist, so heightened in like England and America and other countries, like, so it's like they
yeah,
need you to define who you are. Like, it doesn't matter if your great great
yeah,
grandmother is black. Okay, you're still brown, so that means you're black.
yeah,
It's like when really it's like
yeah, yeah,
most of us are made up of all different kind of races, And once we
yeah,
kind of
yeah,
get to that point where race isn't such a heightened thing and heightened conversation, then
yeah,
things will change. So I can respect the Somalis. You lot don't want to be called black. That's fine.
mm.
You'll never hear me say that again. Okay? Don't worry. Okay, I'm speaking directly to you, okay? Don't come for me, please.
Yeah,
So,
I realize it's a
mhm.
lot easier to live that way.
Yeah,
When
yeah,
you
yeah.
just say,
Hmm.
I guess it makes sense. I guess it's what they want as well. Just say you're Somali. That's it.
Yeah, 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 yeah. It's none of my business. I'm
Yeah,
Jamaican, so that's all I care about. Listen, that is not my
yeah,
business. Okay.
yeah.
So, Sharks, what else is coming up for you and the Inspire podcast? Like, what's coming up next?
I would say, so right now we've concluded our season.
Oh, okay.
We're taking it was a little finale.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so what we've got coming up is taking a little break for the new year and this and that.
Hmm.
But in the meanwhile, trying to basically grow what Inspire really is.
Okay.
I guess we've been very nice with the podcast, comfortable with it, I guess, so to
Mhm.
speak. And I
Okay.
realized, especially doing the theatre stuff, you got to get out the comfortability to get into more stuff. So
Mhm.
it's basically taking the camera out of the studio more with people.
Okay.
Um, and the next season is called Art of Storytelling. So it's more condensed versions of like
Mhm.
the stuff that we're already doing.
Okay. Mhm.
Um, and then like even looking to meet creatives outside of the podcast, seeing them doing
Mhm.
their thing, how they
Okay.
kind of go about it,
Like
all
that.
that kind
Mhm.
of
Mhm.
so essentially like my main vision board of
Yeah.
like what to try and become
Mhm.
is for Inspire, not just
Mhm.
myself, is to kind of be like a mixture of like complex and A24. That's
Okay.
um
Okay. I
that's
like
what we're
that.
trying to go for.
Multimedia company, which sounds sick.
Exactly.
I
Yeah,
love it.
yeah, absolutely. You
I
know,
love
where the
it.
podcast is just one
Mm-hmm.
offshoot of
Mm-hmm.
all that we do, you know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I like that. I'm excited. Keep me posted. Keep
No,
me
no,
posted.
definitely, for sure.
I'll definitely support any way I can, but that sounds really exciting.
Yeah.
And so where can people find you, your Inspire
Yep.
podcast? Where can they find it, to
So you
keep
can find it on all socials at
Mhm.
Inspire UK, Inspyre
Mhm.
UK. And as for my one, it's just uh Sharks' Polaroid.
Mhm.
I think on Instagram it's just sharks.oa.
Okay.
But
Nice.
you can find a spy first, then it'll lead you to me. You know what I mean?
Sick. Well, Sharks, it has been great to finally have you on my podcast.
Yeah,
And I'm sure you'll be back and I'll be back on yours. I
no,
love being
100%.
on your show. And yeah, it
Yeah,
was great. It was a great conversation talking
definitely.
about the art of podcasting and being a
Yeah,
creative. So it was a fun conversation. Long time coming, but we did it.
definitely. I
We did
appreciate
it.
it.
No, you're welcome. Well, guys, thanks for tuning in for this week's episode. You can follow me all on my usual socials. You know them. There's a bunch of them. Stay tuned for new episodes coming soon.